These four college football programs need to start winning games or they're going to be losing recruits.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, all-time college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we're going to be talking about four college football programs that need to start winning immediately, or they can be in danger of losing recruits. No particular order here. You can judge that as you see fit. But the Florida Gators, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, South Carolina Gamecocks, and North Carolina Tar Heels all have their issues on field, plus a few things that could be going wrong off the field that we're going to combine and discuss individually. I'm going to start with the Florida Gators. It's the obvious one because of Billy Napier's tenure. That aside, I'm just throwing that away. Even if Billy was 100% in a situation, they were going to keep him. And let's not believe that. The way Florida's playing, why would you want to be around that program, especially if you're an offensive recruit? Their defense has been fine, but they've been hung out to dry. They gave up 18 points at home and lost to USF. What defensive recruit wants to be around that? Offensively, DJ Lagway is one of the most gifted quarterbacks in the country, but he just threw 5 interceptions. All praise to LSU for picking him off, but some of those reads, some of those decisions, some of the timing, just dreadful. The coaching staff is at fault there. And then on top of it all, there's so much negative energy that has been built up because the last few years it's been the same thing. Florida's in a rough spot. If they do not play better at Miami this weekend, and again, regardless of what's going on with Billy Napier, why would I believe that they're going to keep all their recruits? I don't. And then on top of it, again, Billy's on the hot seat. So let's address that while we're in the room of talking about the Gators. This is game 4 for Florida, and I've talked about this many times before in the last couple of weeks on the Portal Podcast. Game 4 of any season, that means several of your players are hitting that threshold. If you play more than 4 games, you can't redshirt. If you play more than 4 games, and Billy gets fired later in the year, you're in a position where some of your roster is going to leave and going to be mad that you fired the coach afterwards. The Florida administration's at a tough spot there. If you fire Billy, if they play really poor this weekend at Miami, and it could definitely happen. If you fire him right after, some of the kids might leave, but they will leave with their red shirt and they'll go out the door, etc. Won't be quite as bad. But if they fire Billy like the week before Georgia, that's their next bye. They got a bye after Miami. In about a month, they got another bye before they play the Georgia Bulldogs. Usually you fire a coach bye week coming in. That's just how it works in college football. If you're going to do it and you wait later, that's iffy. So will they do that? That's something else that recruits probably wouldn't like because it would give them less time as well. If you make that decision now, maybe you can keep some of the assistant coaches in-house, make it work. But on the field, Florida's in trouble. And then on top of it, again, Billy's tenure in Gainesville is probably at best not likely. So Florida, I would say they are in danger of more than any other program in the college football ranks of not just losing recruits, but losing several. They lost 5 to 10 of the kids that are currently committed. It's a really good class. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. South Carolina. This is another one that is a very dangerous circumstance. Think about this in terms of a program that just has some awkwardness to it. It's not their fault that Shane Beamer is a legendary name because, oh, by the way, Frank Beamer was the head coach for the Virginia Tech Hokies and brought them to prominence. They were the national runner-up in 1999 under his leadership. His son, yes, Shane Beamer, Virginia Tech grad. You would think they're going to come calling now that they have made a decision to get rid of Coach Pry. That aside, they haven't looked very good. Look at the situation in terms of their offense. even with Lenora Sellers, who's obviously a very gifted young man at quarterback and who can run, they're averaging 110 yards rushing a game with one of the most gifted, mobile, and just naturally massive quarterbacks in the country. 110 yards a game? Out of 136 schools in the FBS, South Carolina is 118th in rushing. Not exactly an offense you can sell to recruits. They are absolutely in danger of losing recruits just for that. And then it's just the way they have played. They didn't just lose to Vanderbilt. They were annihilated. On their home field in the second half, they were outscored 34-0. They didn't look like they had effort. They didn't look like they had physicality. And above all else, saw a little bit of that, you know what, do I want to be here look. That is not a good thing. Something is wrong at South Carolina that goes beyond coaching, that goes beyond talent. The mesh just isn't right. South Carolina is absolutely in danger of losing recruits. And on top of it, you got to remember now, South Carolina is very competitive in the NIL market, going after some big name guys. Some of those kids are going to get phone calls regardless of what's going on with South Carolina on the field. Other programs have money too. So it's one thing to lose recruits. I have a feeling some of their elite recruits, I'll leave names out, but some of those elite guys, do not be surprised if the Gamecocks watch them go visit other schools because they're playing so poorly and the energy is so low. Unless they change it like immediately, South Carolina is in a lot of danger of losing recruits. Notre Dame, they have started 0-2, two quality teams they played, but it's their defense. Their horrendous defense. Who wants to be a part of that? Now, Mike Mickens is considered to be one of the best DB coaches in college football, specifically with corners. He's put a lot of guys in the NFL. They had a national top-ranked defense the last couple of seasons. But now that they have Chris Ash as the secondary coach, partially with Mickens, they split it up, and he's the defensive coordinator. They are awful. Matter of fact, they went from a top 10 passing defense. They're 127th in the nation. And while they got some really good recruits committed, at some point, kids are going to look around like, what is going on? They're giving up 282 yards a game. They're 0-2. The pass defense is definitively the reason. And your defensive coordinator is supposed to be a part of that. They went away from what Mickens has done in terms of man coverage, playing a lot more zone. I would imagine that there are a lot of parents that are like, what is going on here? Recruits, etc. And much like with South Carolina with some of their high-end recruits that I mentioned a minute ago, Notre Dame is going to have kids. They're going to get phone calls from everybody because they're an elite program in terms of recruiting. Matter of fact, Rivals has Notre Dame's class number 1 right now. I guarantee you every one of their defensive recruits is getting phone calls. Why wouldn't they? Do you want to play in a defense that pass defense is 127th out of 136 teams? Would you blame any coach for calling them? You got nothing to lose anyway. Notre Dame doesn't really start to show it like it's got to pass the eye test. Sound tackling, not having just wide open holes in their defense. Guys running down the field scot-free. Tackling has to be better in general. They're in danger of losing some recruits. Now, offensively, they've been better than the defense, but they haven't exactly been clutch either. They've certainly had their problems too. And again, above all else, they're 0-2, and they have not lived up to the expectations after being in the national title game this year. Notre Dame might have the easiest route to get out of this because they've got some decent games coming up, but they should be favored in all the rest of their games. But if they slip up at all, don't be surprised if Notre Dame loses some players. Finally, North Carolina. This is a program that I think is probably going to end up losing some players because it just looks bad. They got obliterated in the first game. They're not able to throw the ball much. And just kind of looking at the stats, like they can't do much offensively. They're averaging 279 yards a game, not passing. Total. That's 127th in college football. They went out and got South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez, talented player. He's played a couple years at South Alabama. Everybody thought that he would acclimate pretty quickly to UNC under Bill Belichick. He's had his ups and his downs, especially early on. He was very poor, including a pick 6. Much like Notre Dame, the look has to be different, just on the other side of the ball. Their defense got some issues as well, but they're so pedestrian on offense. They're going to take some lumps there. Carolina has recruited better this year, no question. But that does not exclude the Tar Heels from being a program that is going to get some players picked off. They recruited in a state that is absolutely one of the best in the country. Everybody recruits the greater Charlotte area anymore. It is a rising giant in the recruiting world. Any of those kids in particular, if you're a UNC fan, I would pay particular attention to those. Secondarily, it's just the roster in general. They've got a decent roster. It's not bad. People are going to say, well, why would you go there? They got this amount of talent and they're getting smacked. It's a legitimate question. North Carolina needs to play not just better this weekend. They need to show it in terms of how it looks. It can't just be statistical. They need a little flash. They need to look consistent, sure, but they need some fun. They need that extra energy on the sideline, the whole 9 yards, and that needs to kind of carry on for a while. Because remember, this is Coach Belichick's first year there. Recruits need to see it for a while. One game's not going to get it. They're the one that could really, really go south out of this list, and we'll see what happens. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon.